Preaching your politics will dull your story and take out any complexity that might be present. Well, what do I mean by this? When people say a story is complex, most of the time they're referring to how the two parties in the story are represented well and are given equal light to shine. You see, the problem with preaching one's politics is that politics by nature is tribalistic, meaning it tends to exclude the opposition as just pure evil or pure nonsense. Further, it tends to glorify the group one sides with because whatever that group believes is the ultimate truth. This is how tribalism works. Doing this in writing, in other words, preaching your politics, means that you exclude one side, treating them as just pure evil, and never give them a chance to shine. You never give them an equal chance to represent their case in front of the reader or the viewer. Likewise, whatever you believe in is the thing that is good and is always portrayed in a good light with no possible defects, literally no flaws whatsoever. Whatever you believe in the real world is projected into the story as the ultimate God-given truth. And the opposition, in other words, whatever opposes the ideas you believe in the real world, is treated as just utter evil. At least in the real world, the opposition is given a chance to speak for themselves. They are equal humans who can think for themselves equally and are often given the right to do so. However, in your story, this cannot be the case, which means the complexity is taken away from the reader. In other words, you steal away the complexity from your story, and your reader or your viewer never gets to experience what the villain is using as a motive, what is driving the villain. What this do, as I said before, is suck any complexity from your story. Your villains are evil for the sake of being evil. Your protagonist is good for the sake of being good. In A Song of Ice and Fire, for instance, there are plenty of monsters. Ramsay Bolton is by no means a complex villain. He's just evil for the sake of being evil. However, for every Ramsay Bolton in a Game of Thrones, there are countless other complex characters that walk the line between evil and good. George R.R. Martin is able to achieve this because he gives every side of the conflict, the good and the evil, an equal chance to shine. In other words, he gives the reader a full picture that both showcases the villain's perspective and the hero's perspective. That way the audience can mine the story for its full complexity. George R.R. Martin and many of my favorite authors such as Brandon Sanderson, although to a lesser extent, Scott Lynch, Neil Gaiman, are the rare few I have read over my many years that do not treat the stories like two sides of the same dice. They represent each side of the story, that of Group A and Group B, equally, leaving the audience to extract meaning out of the story rather than stabbing them with a laundry list of their beliefs. This is why most people say A Game of Thrones is complex, and this is why as a writer I do not think I will ever preach my politics again. Because yes, I did this when I was starting out. My first two manuscripts were littered with instances where the protagonist would come across something and spew a flood of opinions that were exactly mine, which on in itself is not bad. However, if I gave my opinions through my protagonist, I should have had a villain that had different opinions opposing those of my protagonist. In other words, if I had done that, I would have provided a scenario much like in the real world, that someone believes in something and someone else opposes that thing. However, I did not. I never gave a villain that opposes the ideas of my protagonist, because again, how could you ever do that? How could you oppose the ideas of my protagonist
when my protagonist is telling the truth?
This is how I used to think. It's awful. It really zapped any complexity out of the story. But with my third manuscript, I decided I would for once steer away from good versus evil. In other words, from glorifying one side and blocking the other, censoring the other side basically, and write something more real, something with more sides, more perspective. So I found this difficult to do for the first time, but I made a small difference with my protagonist. Instead of making him relate to me, I kind of made him not relate to me and evil. By having a morally detestable protagonist, I was forced to give would-be potential readers a clear understanding of why does the protagonist behave and believe what he does. While that manuscript did not get a publication deal, all my beta readers, all 8, said that they truly related to the hero and that the protagonist was complex, entertaining, and most importantly, felt human. And even some of them pointed out the fact that I was giving each side an equal chance to shine as a positive rather than a negative. And that's why I think it's crucial for a writer to not religiously preach their politics to the reader. You can preach your politics to a certain extent because you're human. You're writing this, and it's inevitable that you put some of you inside your story. It's literally your story. You're gonna put some of you in there. But I mean, do not religiously preach your politics to the reader. Try to represent the supposed villain and good guy in equal light. In other words, give them equal chance to shine, to ultimately give the audience a full picture. After all, a full picture is better than a fragmented one. Subscribe, like this, and share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, and God bless you. If you have reached this far, you're amazing. I like you.